Welcome back, everyone, to another Coach Blaker video. Today we're going to be doing preseason 2023 State of the Jungle. This is going to be another dev blog. I think I'm going to have a dev blog playlist, but I do want to do more dev blogs. If you guys are interested in dev blogs, make sure you hit that thumbs up so I know, and make sure you subscribe. That way you're notified when I make more dev blogs. If you guys haven't joined my Discord, please join my Discord. If you guys got questions about ranking, if you guys have questions about improving, if you guys have questions about runes or builds or anything like that that you guys might be struggling with, my Discord is a place to find those answers. I'll answer, my students will answer, other people might answer, hey, who knows? But you're gonna get your questions answered most of the time, if not all the time, and so I definitely recommend you hop on in there if you got any questions. And remember to go to my site, coachblaker.com, to book a session. There's a lesson type for everyone, so I highly recommend you go ahead and check that out. League sometimes can be very frustrating, it could be very annoying, it could be just all the emotions, the negative ones that you don't want. But after you start learning how to win your games and carry your games without the frustration of your teammates and stuff like that, it becomes a lot more enjoyable, especially when you start climbing and reaching your goals. So again, check out my site, coachblaker.com. Hey y'all, Riot Flocks here to talk about how the jungle changes introduced in patch 12.22 have landed. As of writing this post, it's only been about a week since preseason has been live. We've seen a lot of junglers talking about the changes to their role, so we wanted to talk about how we think things are going. Keep in mind, this is preseason and we're going to continue to make adjustments, but we wanted to open up to dialogue because we're playing. Why did they have to say we're playing on this patch? I mean, I guess some people think riders don't play on the patch, but okay. Have thoughts of our own, and we're listening to yours as well. Before we get started, I just wanted to list our goals for the jungle changes overall. So let's see. Shift jungle complexity into more rewarding and meaningful areas. I think they did do that. So one of the, as an example, is tempo. Tempo is something that a lot of junglers that play might not have. They might lack how to actually do it. They might lack just the concept of it in general. But with these little pet systems, it's like, well, we have to clear to, boost our pet. And in which case, Riot kind of subconsciously tells us to increase your tempo speed. So I think they actually did. That was just an example, but I think they are doing a good job in those type of areas. Make junglers less reliant on their teammates to succeed in the role. I do think that's also true. I think that times have changed. I definitely think times have changed. And I'm not saying jungle is a hard carry role. I mean, it is, but in the form of like 1v9ing. Unless you're a specific champ, you can't really do that. But I will say that with these changes, they're kind of shifting it so almost all junglers can kind of do that. Before, how jungle worked was you would play and you would try to gank your laners. If your laners get ahead, good job, you win. If you gank them, they get ahead and then they feed, well, you lose. You're more of just a smite bot. But I definitely feel with this season, even with tanks, it feels more of like, I won't want to say all tanks, but I'm going to say more bruisers, juggernauts, things that aren't assassins or like hard carries. Like those champions starting to kind of cross that line of like being not really a hard carry into like sort of being a hard carry. And so I do like that. I do like that because, like I said before, it was always just about, well, can you gank this lane? Cool. You got a lead. Awesome. You lost your lead. Well, I guess we lose because my champ sucks. So I'm glad that doesn't happen anymore. Or at least in my experience, it hasn't really been happening that often. Increase the skill floor of the jungle role to make getting autofilled into jungle a less miserable experience. I do think that's the case. I do think it's easier to jungle now. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that it's easier to win as jungle. And I think when these changes hit, people were always having their opinions about, well, jungle's too easy now. You can be challenger if you jungle now. It's just super easy. It doesn't even take skill anymore. Which I feel like those weren't even junglers, because people that actually play jungle would be like, that's just part of it. Clearing is part of it, but that's not what makes you a jungler. So, I personally think that, yes, they made jungle easier, but if you're an autofield jungler going into an actual experienced jungle, you're still having issues. Like, you're still not going to be able to keep up. That's what I'm saying. But the way that it is now, it's like, okay, I can't keep up with you, but I'm also not being a hindrance to my team. I can still kind of perform just well enough to be useful. And that's something that I do like about what they're doing. Okay, let's talk about what we're observing, what we think, and plans, if any, we want to address some of these areas. Oh, we have to address some of these areas. Counter jungling. Okay. The first area we want to discuss is counter jungling, as it's been a hot topic ever since the changes were announced earlier this year. And while we do think it's a core part of the role and adds depth and skill expression to these forms of pathing, ganking, and general decision making, we also don't think the way it was in the game before preseason was the healthiest version of it. I don't know why I just like stuttered that whole entire sentence. We don't think the way it was in the game before preseason was the healthiest version of it. Okay. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm going to keep going because I might be wrong. Or I'm not going to say I might be wrong, but I want to know what their thought process is. Junglers often pick the champions to round out the team comp for clear speed, comfort, or what's meta at the time. Or in my case, to play Shaco. But more than that, early in the game, junglers are at absolute mercy of their teams. So even if you pick a champion with decent clear speed, if your mid is being shoved in, and you have no one to help you stave off a 2v1 invade. I mean, that's true. If you're like mid or top or something like that, that is one of the things that I did struggle with, well, I think every jungler struggled with, to enjoy about the role, is that you do tend to be in a situation where like, okay, well, everybody's losing lane and I don't have a jungle now. Thanks. Like, I'm glad that it hasn't really been happening in any elo I've been playing in. It really hasn't been the case anymore. I'm gonna keep reading, but I definitely know what they're talking about. So to help prevent the early invades, we made it take more time to clear the enemy's jungle early, which I have noticed myself. You still can invade, but it's more important that you either have knowledge of the enemy's location or you're just willing to take that risk. But this trade-off means the rewards are more impactful than they were before preseason. With the addition of the companions, your smite upgrade is reliant on the number of camps you clear, not how many times you smite. This means if you take a risk and counter early, even with the increased time it takes to clear the camp, you win bigger than before as your smite is closer to being more powerful and your opponent's is further. And I actually said that too when I made that video about the companions. It's one of the things that I said, and I said, well, yeah, these pets are kind of helpful and whatnot, but you got to realize, like, these smite differences, you got 600 to 900 to 1200. That's pretty huge, right? That is a lot. So if someone is at 1200 and you're at 900, you're not out smiting them. If someone's at 900 and you're at 600, you're not out smiting them, you know? And so I do like that a lot. I like that there's more emphasis on keeping that tempo in order for you to be relevant as a jungler. And on top of that, your pet, once it's fully, evolved, it does get an ability. And you can't use that ability unless it's fully evolved. And if you're like 10 camps ahead, well, the enemy jungler is just like really behind. Like it's so sad when I do jungle in the lower ranks and players are really behind the numbers, whether I'm jungling or not, honestly. Like, you could definitely see there's always one jungler that's like 4 to 5 camps ahead, and I've been in a position where I've been like 15 camps ahead. It's pretty disgusting. But that's one of the cooler parts about the new jungle, is that like it gives you a metric. Like, the metric is there. You're not really keeping up in time. You're wasting time, and that's more obvious. So an easy way for you to work on not wasting time is trying to keep your pet stacks up. And so I really do like that. Like, it's subconsciously telling us how to keep tempo. And again, that's something that I really do appreciate from Riot. I appreciate that people that are working on these jungle changes are actually junglers, or maybe they're getting help from other junglers that are actually real junglers. But it definitely goes to show that they're not making changes just based off a whim. They actually understand it this time, and that's huge. That means a lot. They're actually like doing it the right way. The other reason we wanted to move away from the very early counter jungling is because it's a pretty miserable experience when you're on the receiving end. Every laner has had the experience of having a lane frozen on them and being forced off the wave. Yep. You're down in CS and experience. But when this happens in lane, someone can help you break the freeze, while that isn't possible in the jungle, which is true. When your camps are gone and you're down in experience, you have nothing left to do other than gank. And ganking, when you're behind, leaves you open to counter ganks and losing objectives. So I actually thought about that too. A lot of the times, laners don't really understand there's a lot more to jungle than what meets the eye. People think, well, my jungler sucks because they never gank. And it's like, well, there's a lot more to jungle. It's not just farming and then here I come, especially in the higher levels, right? There's matchups where that enemy jungler is waiting for your jungler to gank, and then in which case they will counter gank and kill everybody. That happens quite often. And so even when I'm coaching students and their team was like, gang, 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 and I'm just thinking like, you wish they could, but they can't. Because if they gank and someone else shows up, it's going to kill everybody. This is why it's important to understand where the enemy jungler is before making decisions like that. And again, jungle is very complex. So if you guys do have these issues, make sure you check out my site, ghostbreaker.com, book yourself a session. There is something for everybody. Check out what lesson plans that I have. And really work on this and improve on this, especially because the season's getting ready to start. It's very, very close. So try to get your jungle game down packed if you guys are junglers. So while counter jungling is a bit different than it was before preseason, we feel like it still exists in the game, but in a much less frustrating form. All of this said, while we're happy with the direction this is moving, we are keeping a close eye to make sure that jungling still retains place for skill expression. I'm glad. And that is definitely obvious that they're trying to do that. Clear optimizations. I'm going to level with you here. I play Shaco and I love clear optimization, so I'm sad that it's less of an option than before, but we need to make a change here. Okay. Before preseason, the clear speed and health for an optimized clear versus a non-optimized clear was honestly pretty insane. True, I do agree. Like someone that actually knew how to jungle versus someone that didn't, your HP was going to be extremely low. And on top of that, whenever you're getting into the jungle as a new player, it is definitely a hard thing to do because, again, you have to learn how to actually clear. You have to learn how to kite properly and go this way, that way, and you got to go from this camp to that camp. Like, that is definitely something that changed, and I'm glad it did. When we were thinking about these jungle changes, we had to answer the question, how much should we prioritize a player's learned skills and experience over things like role accessibility, champion diversity, and so on? The answer to that is complicated, I would assume. Optimizations are good for the role with two major exceptions. Jungle viability being defined by clear speeds and unitive optimizations like camp dot dragging. Oh, unintuitive. What did I just say? Unitive? I was like, that's why I read it, and then I was like, that doesn't make sense. What did you just type? And then I just said I read it wrong, or I just realized I read it wrong. Coach, what? I'm sorry, I just was reading quick, I guess. Yeah, that's what I was just explaining. That's exactly what I was just explaining. We still want clear optimizations to exist. We think that they're a healthy aspect of jungling skill expression, but we want that to be taken out of the champ select and into the game by putting AoE and single target junglers on a more even playing field and removing the particularly unintuitive optimizations of letting a camp die in the jungle to dot while walking away to your next camp. This still sort of exists though, as your companion will damage camp. Yeah, I've noticed that too. So, that's one of the things that I like to do a lot would be, get a camp really, really low, they walk away and they'll just die to burn. That doesn't happen anymore, but I've learned to do that with my companion. I learned that if you can get it to the right HP, your companion will smack the camp and kill it for you. So it's kind of like that, but I do understand what they did there. Some of the most dramatic updates this preseason were the least range changes to reduce double camping and making kiting optimizations less important. And again, I definitely said that as well. I've noticed that, and these are things that I think is important because not everybody knows how to kite. And if you're new to the jungle, especially in high elo, and you got fills, that is something you're just not going to be good at. And so removing it and making it more an even playing field for everybody, if they're filled or if they're just getting into it, is huge. But again, it doesn't take away the skill expression of that role. Directionally, we think these changes are valuable, but the original launch versions overshot our goal and removed too much clear mastery. To correct this, we recently adjusted leash ranges to be a bit more lenient. That said, we do expect to continue to examine jungle clearing, mastery rewards, and look at where we may have gone too far in the future. That is something that I've also said, right? I had a video saying that people were mad about the leash ranges, but the thing about the leash ranges is like high elo players never really had an issue with it because we knew how to control our camps. We already knew how to like kite the right way. We knew what exactly to do to keep it in that range and be optimal. And so Riot noticed that, and instead of making it so that, oh, you ruined jungle, again, players sometimes, especially low elo players, don't really understand what is happening. Like, so in their eyes, they ruined jungle. In high elo players' eyes, it's like they made it harder, so to speak. Like, it made it harder to do what they need to do, and you're punished if you mess up. But Riot sees it as, yeah, we just made it really hard. We're gonna make these ranges a little bit bigger, so that way it's a little bit more lenient for you guys, you know. So this is one of the things that I think developers, period, just have a hard time, dealing with, is because you have a group of people who do not really understand what's happening, but they're very frustrated at change. Then you have a group of people that do understand what's happening. They might be frustrated, but they do understand what's happening, and they have a little bit of a more structured input on it. And then you have obviously the dev team that's like, gotta listen to both. It's ruined. Well, you have to be perfect. Okay. Well, what's really happening here? Oh, the ranges is making it so that it's kind of hard to clear with champs that are like ranged or something like that, or have a really hard time clearing. Okay, so let's make the range bigger so that way those type of champions aren't going to be punished for it. So again, they do change things, as I said before. It takes time. Pathing. We also altered pathing a fair bit this season with Scuttle Crab changes, clear speed tweaks, and adjustments to Gromp and Krugs. A large portion of jungle skill expression is dynamically adjusted your pathing based off the game state. Our goal isn't to change that, but we also don't want pathing to be exclusively decided by your clear speed and crab timings like it has been previously before. Which is true. Excuse me. Which is true. I did not like that. And I do like the way that the tempo is this time around. You don't really have to be quick. You don't have to be fast. You're not getting punished for playing a slower jungler. I really do like it now. We also don't want it to be defined by which camp is painful to take, Krugs, or which camp will get you back into full health, Grom. And again, that is something that I've noticed changed as well. Krugs were a painful camp to take. They're out of the way and take forever to clear, meaning many junglers just skip them. As they were, Krugs meaningfully reduced pathing options since most champs could have, and should have, pretended they did not exist for a long portion of the game. Now that they aren't as durable and time-consuming, they're now potential candidates for an interesting or unusual first clear path. I agree. I've noticed that too. Champions that just have a hard time clearing Krugs is just very, very easy now. So, yeah, definitely have more options for clearing. Another problematic camp was Gromp, and its chunky built-in health. How many posts am I going to read with you, right, having chunky in it? While satisfying, there were two major issues here. Gromp was solving pathing due to its ability to heal you at the end of a clear, and it was providing too much sustain, especially if paired with Smite Heal, which is true. This led to us to bring overhealing in the jungle down and shift it into areas with more skill expression, etc., kiting, back timings, etc. Or as an example, kiting, back timings, etc. And tying the heal to the jungle companions and not a specific camp, which is true. I've noticed that. Sustaining the jungle and its influence on pathing is a very sensitive system, and we may have undershot on this, but we're looking at ways to improve the system moving forward. Another problematic camp was Scuttle Crab. Scuttle spawn time meant if your champion couldn't clear to make it to Scuttle by 3:15, they weren't. Yes, I've always said that. I was like, literally the way the jungle is right now is you have like a little pool of champions. Can you clear fast enough to get there? No, your champ sucks. So it's funny that they brought it up because that's exactly how I felt. Now that it spawns at 3:30, faster clears can get full recalls or gank stop before the crowd, while slower clears can actually get through their camps in time to contest. Yep. This should open up a window for more creative and interesting pathing beyond the typical 6 camp into crab clear. It also makes it so that it also makes that non-junglers are able to do it as well. That's one of the cool parts about it too. Like, you can see some Silas coming in there. I personally like playing Cassante jungle. It's not that great, but I do like it. But I'm also not punished for playing slower, so I do like that myself. But even playing a fast champ like Udyr, for example, I'm not really rewarded for being faster other than being able to get a gank off, So, again, huge. It will take some time for these changes to fully manifest, and they may even end up being dangerous to the clear meta. However, I don't think the previous meta was a very good one when it came to jungle pathing. Our ultimate goal with these changes is to open up a new meta full of options and interesting decisions for a jungler. While it's still a bit too early to draw conclusions, jungle pathing remains a deep strategic part of the role and a part we expect players will constantly be engaging with and developing. I can see that. Introducing large changes like this to League is never an easy decision, but it's one we do with the goal of making the game better for all our players, not just the new ones on the top or new ones are the top 0.5%. The jungle changes are still very new, so we ask that you be patient as we collect more data to help us continue to improve upon these changes over the next few months. Thanks for reading and hope to see you in the jungle. I do think that, and these are my final thoughts here, I do think that whenever Riot introduces anything new to their game, period, people just don't like it. But as it sits for a little bit, people start liking it. Again, oh, the jungle pets are going to ruin it, makes the game easier. And then people play, and it's like, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, the leash range is horrible, and people play, and it gets, oh, it's not that bad. Like, it takes time to really understand what's good or bad. And I'm glad that Riot isn't one of those companies that are like, oh my gosh, you don't like it? Let me hurry up and fix it for you. Like, that's not how it works. And any game developer that does that is going to fail if they haven't already. And just one of the examples that I like is Square Enix, with Final Fantasy 14. A lot of the times the community is like, well, let's do this, let's do that. I don't like this. And Square's just like, we understand, but we're the developers, and we kind of know what's best for you based off what you guys are doing, based off the metrics and stuff like that. And so, yes, do they listen to the community? Yeah. But on the other hand, is it something that's going to ruin the integrity of the game? If so, might not be something that they're willing to do. Like changing the camp leash range, that's not something that's going to ruin the integrity of the game. And I already knew they were going to change that because there's no way in heck they're going to keep it that way. But as far as like removing the pet itself, like maybe they might do something else to make it not noticeable. One of the suggestions I had was let it be inside you until you start fighting a camp or something. I think that's probably a little bit better. But as far as removing it in general and turning it into like a smite, that's kind of different story. But I think the direction that they were going, and I said this before, I think the direction that they're going is great. I don't think they're already there, though. I think there are some adjustments they do need to make Jungle better. But I do feel like Jungle is a lot less static. It doesn't feel like, well, if I don't play these types of champions, I'm going to lose. It doesn't feel like, well, if I don't clear like this, I'm going to be low HP. It doesn't feel like, oh, well, if I don't do this right, I'm going to be late. Oh, if I don't do that, but at the same time, it definitely is like, well, oh, I need to do this to be better than the enemy jungler. And so, again, it gives us more options to play, but it also allows it so that the players that are experienced still know what they're doing. And I do like that. But again, if you guys enjoy this, make sure you hit that thumbs up and also subscribe so that way you're notified when I do the next dev blog post. Thank you guys for watching. Peace. Late. Have a good rest of your day or night. And thank you guys for doing what? Approaching this like a coach.